Friends, three things before we kick off this tech review. Number one, I am most likely the last person on planet Earth to drive that, the BMW i8. So file this under exploration, curiosity, fun, rather than business. Number two, yes, I am going to completely geek out, be a dork, and keep the dihedral doors open for at least half of this episode. And number three, a riddle. It would stand to reason that most people would look at that and say that is a direct competitor to an Acura NSX, or perhaps a very, very cheap alternative to a P1, a 918, or a LaFerrari. But my riddle is this: what does the i8 have in common with a Volvo XC90 T8? I'll give you a couple seconds here. Stay off my car. Bist du fertig? Ich auch. If you said an all-wheel drive system that is not connected by some sort of mechanical device, you would be correct. So that's where we need to start here. I have tried to figure out a way to take this bonnet hood off, bring it up, whatever. There's no release there. And yes, if I spent more time, I guarantee you I could get the thing off. But I really want to bring the car back in one piece so you and I can continue to get more BMWs. So take my word for it, there is an electric motor that's underneath there. The electric motor is 96 kilowatts, translates to 129 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque. We really don't need to split hairs in terms of engine speed when that comes in, because with electric motors, it comes in at 0. Now what's interesting here is that electric motor drives the front wheels through a 2-speed transmission made by GKN. That should sound familiar to you because those are the folks in the UK that also made that bonkers and very complex all-wheel drive system in the Focus RS. Now that we have unpacked what's underneath this hood, you're probably looking at this and saying, wow, that is a stunning car, and it is. But you're looking at it again and saying, well, it doesn't look like a Mitsubishi Eclipse, so it can't be front-wheel drive. Well, this is the point of the episode where we need to open other parts of the car to find greasy bits, because that is not the only propulsion system in the i8. Now, for the first time ever on one of our tech reviews, some disassembly is required here, so follow me for a minute. Underneath this backlight, there is plenty of room for a honking gasoline engine or even like a jet turbine, but in reality what we have is a luggage cover. Now that's misleading because the luggage compartment is all of this. So what we have to do is fold this over, then we remove this panel here, and that reveals styrofoam. So then what we do is we take the styrofoam off, and that reveals tin. Okay, now this is where it gets a bit technical because before we switched on the cameras, I removed 8 of these bolts which hold that thing in place. Only problem being we drove this car very hard, so I guarantee you that's very hot, so we'll do this carefully. Oh yes, that is definitely very hot. Let's pull that out. Oh yes, that is very hot. We will put it down here as to not damage the carbon fiber reinforced polymer body panels. And that reveals a very small internal combustion engine. It is a 1.5 liter inline direct injected twin power turbo 3-cylinder engine. Now if you've seen any of our mini episodes, you know that engine, and if you want to know more about that, click on the link above and I'll send you over to the mini episodes. But in this application, it's good for 228 horsepower, which comes in at 5,800 RPM, and 236 pound-feet of torque, which comes in at 3,700 RPM. Now, funny thing, this is it says twin power turbo, but really it's one twin scroll turbocharger, and it's 22 PSI out of that little engine. I mean, it's kind of laughable. Anyway, there is still one more propulsion system we need to talk about. And this one, for some reason, BMW hides. They don't share a lot of information, so I have to really dig for this. It is a belt-driven 280-volt electric motor. It's good for all of 20 horsepower, 74 pound-feet of torque. So if we're reading between the lines here, it is not designed to propel the car on its own. What it is designed for is to help under loads, like a normal hybrid. So picking up from a light, passing, or using sport mode, which we will do a lot in the full first drive review. Make sure you come back for that. Now, I have driven this for a couple of days, and what I really feel that that electric motor is good for is as a generator, and to keep the battery, which is 7.1 kilowatts in the back here, to keep that battery at a certain level of charge, because the sport mode uses both the gasoline and the electric. Now, we need to put aside the now, 3 propulsion systems, if we're counting them all, and talk about yet another transmission. So in the rear, there is a 6-speed automatic that is connected to this gasoline engine and to the rear wheels. But this is where we get back to our riddle of what does this have in common with a Volvo XC90 T8, and that is the all-wheel drive system that is not connected from front to back. Yes, it's in sync probably with some very flash software, and obviously those 2 transmissions working in conjunction with each other. But in reality, if you are driving in full electric mode, this is a front-wheel drive car. But if you are driving in sport mode or really under load, that's when it gets to rear drive or all-wheel drive. Okay, I feel we have unpacked a lot about propulsion systems and literally unpacked pieces of the car. Why don't we leave those there and we'll talk about driving dynamics. Now, to unpack driving dynamics, we need to pick up from where we left off in that i3 episode, and that is to discuss construction methods. But first, I will fully admit that this is stunning to behold in person. I will also admit it made the trip from concept car to production without alteration. And I will further admit, when it rolls down the road, even people who are not into cars, when they see it, they feel they have come face to face with Jeshua himself. All that said, to me, what gets me excited is the way it is built. This and the i3 collectively are a huge gamble on the part of BMW in a technology called carbon fiber reinforced polymer, which is a very fancy and uptown way of saying plastics and composites that are reinforced with carbon fiber, which is another way of saying making carbon fiber cheaper to put into more cars. Now, granted, does it look as sexy when it's exposed in places like this and this? No, but it can go into more down-market cars. Not that this really is a down-market car. So what's the application of carbon fiber reinforced polymer here? Well, like the i3, there's this whole structural cage here that is made out of carbon fiber reinforced polymer as well as aluminum. Now, BMW has some ridiculous marketing name for it. I won't even bore you with it. But then, like other sports cars, there are subframes that hang off the front and back of it, and that carries the electric motor here, suspension here, as well as the internal combustion engine, the electric motor, and the suspension back here. So now that we discussed the structure, let's talk about what hangs off of the structure. It is double wishbones in the front, and this being a BMW, of course, it has a multi-link in the rear. Then there are the wheels, 20 inches all the way around, but like that i3, they're very narrow tires. So you and I will need to spend some time focusing on that in the full first drive review. Then let's discuss the brakes. This being a hybrid, of course, they're regen brakes. Not quite the same like one pedal driving experience like the i3, but they are regen brakes. 13.4 inch diameter in the front, and they're all cross-drilled and slotted, but in the rear it's 13-inch diameter. And then we need to understand something here. The dimensions. You don't really understand how big this car is until you see it in person. So the wheelbase is 110.2 inches, the length 184.9, the width 76.5, but most interestingly, the height is 50.8. Let's put this down here so you can really see it. The height, 50.8. That is over 11 inches closer to the ground than an i3. Quite a difference. Now, with that kind of dimensions, you'd think it's heavy, but this is where the carbon fiber reinforced polymer really pays off, and that is the weight. So it's just a shade under 3,300 pounds, but a fun fact is that just under 3,300 pounds, 200 pounds of it is just the battery in the back. Okay, I feel that is enough for now in terms of driving dynamics. Let's go back to the trick door and talk about the interior, or at least getting your butt inside of one of these things. Now there is an elegant way to shoehorn yourself into one of these things, and it comes from many years of experience of getting in and out of a lease. First step is this, to plant your arse into the driver's seat. The second step is to swing your feet into the footwell, and the third step is just close the door. Significantly easier than any Lotus I have ever driven. But once you're inside, are you guys fans of Blade Runner? Have you seen that trailer for that new Blade Runner coming out? Like, I am super excited because I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. But the interior design of this, it's like Ridley Scott himself slapping you across the face and saying, this is what a car should look like on the inside in 2049. However, there are some bits that do scream 2017, like the infotainment screen here, as well as the HVAC system here. That's mixed with some really nice organic touches, like, for example, the top of the dash, this organic form. Even here, the cover to the instrument panel, it doesn't go all the way to the base of the windshield, which is twofold. It makes room for the head-up display, but also it gives you a little bit of natural light here where you do want it, but gets the glare away from the instrument panel. Very nice touch. Love the steering wheel. As you know, we didn't love it in the i3. And then there's the color and the trim. Not a huge fan in the i3. Here, let's count the door panel, the different colors and trims. We got 1, 2, and 3. Very restrained, very thankful for that. Then there's this width here. So you got this console we talked about with 76.5 inches in width overall for the car. If you have a passenger here, you feel like they're in another country. Then last, and I would say not least, is the materials, the construction method here. Now, BMW goes on and on about the different trim levels and these like weird marketing mumbo-jumbo names. Mega, which this is, the Giga, and then the Terra. Actually, the Terra is very cool because the Terra, aside from better leather and a different color, it has blue seat belts. This one sadly has black seat belts. But something like the seats are covered in like extract from spotted owls, or like the plastics are made out of recycled bottles. Really a neat touch. So overall, lovely place. Very excited about the coming Roadster, I will say that. I feel we should go back there and start putting the car back together, don't you? Now that is a lot of flash tech that you and I have just unpacked, but how does it translate to real-world efficiency? Now, considering that it's an internal combustion engine, around town it will do 28 mpg. On the highway it will do 29 mpg, but it's a hybrid. It's a cool looking hybrid, but it's a hybrid, so these things are rated in mpge. This specific one is 76 mpge. Not bad considering, A, look at it, and B, it's electronic limited to 155 miles an hour. Try that with your Prius. It has a gas tank that is a total capacity of 11.1 gallons. And then I've been charging it all this week on 110. That's taken 3.5 hours for a full charge. I did charge it once at the studio on a 220, and that took about an hour and a half. What does that translate to? Well, on full charge, it goes a whopping 15 miles. So this is closer to that 740e than the i3. Now, there's way more tech that we need to unpack together, and we'll do that in the full first drive review, so make sure you come back for that. But in the interim, I want to leave you guys with a question. The question is this. We have now looked at two cars in what BMW calls their BMW i division. And if you just take the construction methods, it's not marketing mumbo jumbo. These are truly different vehicles. I take my hat off to them for the investment they've made. But my question is this. What other segments should they be playing in? Right now we've seen a city car, and I wouldn't call this a sports car. I would definitely call this a GT car. So we have a very cool looking futuristic GT car. So should they be in family cars? Should they be in crossovers? Should they make a cool like convertible? These are just my suggestions. I'm not saying that they should, but I'm looking for your, not just what would you like to see, but what would you write a check for? I don't want to hear like pie in the sky, like they should come out with a BMW i Rolls Royce, because you and I both know you're not going to buy that. What A, do you want to see, and B, would you buy? You know what, for good measure, how much would you be willing to pay? Keep in mind all the tech that goes into this thing and the construction method. Let me know in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with two things. I've told you this many times, YouTube has absolutely butchered their algorithm, and they have butchered the subscription module, so I ask you to unsubscribe, resubscribe, and click notifications. And number two, I want to leave you with a fun fact that you are absolutely not going to believe, but I have proof. So I am a huge Billy Joel fan. I've seen Billy Joel like 30 times in concerts. Ridiculous, of course, I'm from New York. And I bought tickets to see Billy Joel like months ago. And me and 3 other friends, we went to go to see Billy Joel at Dodger Stadium last night. My friend, one of them, has a BMW Diesel 5 Series, white Diesel 5 Series. A normal human being, 4 people, basically 2 couples, would go in the 5 Series, but we're not normal people. We put 4 people in this and drove from the west side of Los Angeles to Dodger Stadium in an i8. So you should be following me on Instagram. Until I see you next time, bis später.